Hello, my name is Pancakes, and welcome to this brand new episode of Media Buffet. Today I am joined by Khaled, was it, right?
Yep, that's right. That's me.
All right. Khaled here is a guest host from the 4040 Vision podcast, and he is co-hosting with me the Media Buffet episode that is going to be focusing on the 2022 FIFA World Cup, which, if you guys didn't know, is arguably the biggest sporting event every 4 years. So, yeah, we're going to discuss some of the highlights of the event in here, and yeah, let's just see how it goes. For those of you who are in World Cup format, there are 32 countries who play each other in the sport of association football, the real football, and yeah, basically those 32 teams get split into 8 groups of 4, and they play against each other once at the venue. This year, the World Cup was held in Qatar, and since it was held in Qatar, many of the stadiums were, of course, in Qatar. Of course, there's some mild controversies into how they actually prepared for the World Cup, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk football and only football. So, we're going to be starting with the initial phase of the tournament, which I just described, the group stage. Each team plays each other in their group once, and sorry, I had a little bit of raspy throat back there, and yeah, they play each other once, and the top half of each group qualifies into the next round. Now, let's start with you, Khaled. What are some of the highlights that you think were the best moments of this part of the World Cup?
Yeah, there's quite a few. I think early on, the big highlight was definitely Saudi Arabia beating Argentina. Obviously, Argentina went on to win the World Cup, so this was quite a massive upset for Saudi Arabia, a much smaller footballing country in Asia, to defeat to defeat Argentina. Obviously, one of the premier teams in world football. The other highlight definitely was Morocco advancing out of the group stage. Morocco is not the biggest footballing country. They have plenty of talent that plays in Europe, but they were definitely not favored to advance from the group stage, and then they were able to make a pretty deep run. We can talk about that a little bit later. And I think in general was just the excellence that we saw from both France and Argentina, the two eventual teams that made the final, and they started to come on really strong in the second half of the group stage.
Honestly, yeah, I do think that if anything, this edition of the World Cup was highlighted by 3 words: passion and triumph. Many teams that were expected to move on actually ended up falling short. Many teams that were expected to not make any noise at all actually ended up making it deep into the tournament, or not that deep, but further than the group stage. Some examples of this, and these are also my highlights, are basically I forgot the scenario. Oh yeah, it was basically like as you said, Morocco making some noise. Also, Poland triumphing over Mexico over goal difference. That was something, because to me, Mexico had the better talent on paper. But we all know how it is. Mexico has unusually and unfortunately the fame of not doing well in continental or international tournaments. And yeah, another example of some of the highlights of this World Cup is basically Brazil. Oh wait, no, we're at the group stage. My bad. Oh yeah, actually, Brazil losing to Cameroon, because this was the final game of their group and for each other. And basically, I think it was Vincent Abubakar that scored the winning goal in that game. And hold on, can you check that, Kelly? Can you check if it was Abubakar?
Yeah, it was, and I believe he got a yellow card and then got sent off for that celebration at the end.
Yeah. Brazil had already topped their group at that point, so yeah, they won nothing if they lost that game. I mean, they didn't lose anything if they lost that game, so yeah, they just went in and subbed a lot of their big players like Neymar and Richarlison, and basically, they threw away the game because Abubakar scored the winning goal in the last minutes of the game and then got sent off because of him taking his shirt off. I think that's one of the funniest parts of the tournament as well, because imagine that.
Yeah, it was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, at the time Brazil was ranked number 1. So yeah, just imagine like beating the number 1 ranked nation in the world and then getting sent off for scoring the goal against them. Like, that is very funny. Another thing about funny with Brazil in this tournament is not that related to the World Cup, but since we're recording this in August 2023, the following Premier League season had already ended. And yeah, FIFA made a video on YouTube listing the best goals of the tournament. And number 1, it was Richarlison's bicycle kick against Serbia, I think it was.
That sounds right.
It was definitely a group stage game. But basically, I find it really funny how he pulled off one of the greatest goals of the tournament, according to FIFA, but then only managed to score a single goal in its Premier League season for Tottenham the next season. That's like the biggest backfiring moment. A lot of nations started like bringing on players that struck them hearts out in the World Cup, but then failed miserably in the domestic leagues. Like, yeah, one example is Richarlison, because he only scored 1 goal the entire season, not to mention Tottenham's abysmal table placement. And yeah, basically, what I was going to say is, I'm completely sorry, I have a throat problem right now. Aside from Richarlison, I think another example of this, and Khaled, I know you might have a mouthful to say about this, but Enzo Fernandez won the Young Player of the Tournament award with Argentina, which caused Chelsea and Boehly to sign him for a ridiculous amount of money. And yeah, he just didn't play that big of a role in Chelsea's rest of the season the following after the World Cup. And the reason why I bring it up is because many players tend to strike out during the World Cup, as I mentioned, but then just completely fall out. They completely get out of shape and just mess it all up. So yeah, what do you think of cases like Richarlison, or more importantly Enzo Fernandez, that end up just becoming abysmal after the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, for Richarlison, I think he's playing in a different style with Brazil. He's kind of an out and out forward. He's starting every game for them, and he's surrounded by a lot of incredible offensive talent. And then when you look at Tottenham, they went through a transition season. They didn't do so well on the table, and it's kind of hard to replicate that same success and that same connection with his other teammates. And I think you could say the same for Enzo. He obviously had an incredible tournament with Argentina, earned that big money move to Chelsea, but it was definitely a transition season for Chelsea. You know, they go through 2 or 3 managers. They fire Graham Potter early on. They fired Graham Potter just after, I think it was 10 matches or so. So it was hard for him to find his place in the team, I think, with so much turnover and so many players being in and out of the lineup. So I have faith that he'll be able to come back strong. But another player that did really well at the World Cup and did nothing for his club was another Chelsea player, and Hakim Ziyech, who was dynamite for Morocco, one of the driving forces for the team, but did nothing for Chelsea, didn't even get to play much. And I think a lot of that has to do with the role that he played for Morocco. I think he operated more as a 10 for Morocco, and he was kind of stuck out on the wing for Chelsea. So it comes down to, you know, players feeling comfortable, players feeling confident, and then also where they're being played on the pitch matters quite a bit. So it's a lot of factors to account for.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to forget that not exactly the same position they can play for the nation is the exact same that they're good at for a domestic club. An example is Trent Alexander-Arnold, who has recently been popping off. Remember, this is being recorded in August of 2023. And he wasn't that highlighted during the World Cup because a lot of more eyes were on Jude Bellingham and somehow Harry Maguire, who, you know, is 10 times better for his nation than his club at any given moment. But yeah, basically, Trent Alexander-Arnold did make appearances for that World Cup team. But yeah, he's still being played a lot on defense when he is actually very good as a midfielder. He was actually put as a midfielder recently in England's match in the Euros. I think it was against Macedonia, and they won by a lot. And Trent Alexander-Arnold even scored a goal in that. So yeah, I think a big contributing factor to player success for their nations is knowing what positions they're good at as opposed to what they play. If they're good at what they play, then fine. But if you can find a hidden talent in another position that isn't the one they play in, then go ahead. For example, I think Luis Suarez is a winger, or was a winger, for Barcelona and most recently Gremio, but he is a striker for Uruguay. Either him or Darwin Núñez, I'm not sure, but yeah, basically he switches positions between nation and club. And speaking of Uruguay, the Uruguayan national team was kind of a tricky position this group stage, because on the final days it was kind of a heat, because like in the last edition, South Korea started making noise. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, they were one of the disappointments. I think Uruguay not making it out of the group stage was a big surprise, because they were definitely favored in a group with Portugal, South Korea, and Ghana. And I think the other two other big shocks were Germany not qualifying and Japan winning that group. And of course, Belgium, who probably has some of the most talented players on paper, not making it out. So it was not a great tournament for the European big names, of course, with France being the exception. But a lot of the Asian teams really stepped up against South Korea and Japan, who both advanced from their group. So I think for Uruguay, this was the last tournament for some of their older big name players. You mentioned Luis Suarez, I think Edinson Cavani, and a few other of the older players from the generation that went pretty far, I believe, in South Africa and in Brazil in the past couple World Cups. They're just reaching the end of that generation. So a lot of European and other big name teams definitely didn't qualify because they just weren't good enough. And it was definitely a pro-Asia World Cup, which makes sense because it was being played in Asia. So yeah.
Yeah, it does make some geographical sense. And basically, all eyes were on the Asian nations, as you mentioned. South Korea was making a lot of noise because, they upstaged Portugal, similar to Brazil being trounced by Cameroon. They did upstage Portugal during the final minutes of their group game in the final day of the group stage, which actually caused Uruguay to go down, because South Korea and Uruguay were on a tight race for that second place spot in their group, because Portugal topped the group comfortably, not like the later stages of the tournament, but yeah, basically Uruguay and South Korea were racing for that second spot, and it was all depending on this game's result. But what happened was that all eyes were set for Uruguay to go on and Korea to fall out, because no one expected South Korea to qualify for the later stages, because again, South Korea, like Morocco and Japan, aren't expected to make a lot of noise until they actually get to the World Cup. That's just been the way it is for a long time, but it's actually changing after this tournament, and that gives a lot to say. So basically, South Korea scored in the final minutes against Portugal, and yeah, this cost Uruguay to fall out and not make it to the latter parts of the tournament. So I think one of the most famous moments of this internet exchange is basically stance, and yeah, it is a sad. When you see Luis Suarez's background, he was part of that magical 2010 squad that made it to the semifinals with Diego Forlán and stuff. He was a magical player for his team, and yeah, it's sad to see that he went out like this to an unfortunate situation like that. But hey, every coin has two sides, and this is just one of those situations.
Pardon for the interruption, folks. We had some slight technical difficulties on Khaled's end, so I'm going to continue the episode alone due to the fact that he could not continue the episode with us this evening. So, yeah, basically, now we're moving on to the knockout stages of the 2022 World Cup, and that is when any team that loses their match gets automatically eliminated. O sea, once they lose, they're gone. And yeah, as I said before, the format gives it so that only the top 2 teams from each group advance to the next stage, which is the knockout stages. And in total, 16 teams would advance. And yeah, basically, the 16 teams that advanced from this tournament, I'm going to detail them from Group A to Group H. Basically, from Group A, I'm pretty sure that the ones who advanced were the Netherlands and Senegal. They advanced to the knockout stage. The ones that got knocked out are Ecuador and Qatar. Group B, England and the US moved on, and Iran and Wales got knocked out. Group C, Argentina, the eventual you-know-what, and Poland advanced to the knockout stages, while Mexico and Saudi Arabia got knocked out. That is a particular case because when you take this stage specifically, I watched every match because, Argentina, and except for the Saudi Arabia one with Argentina, and I watched the Mexico-Poland one. I was on a cruise when I watched that, fun fact, and I watched the Mexico-Saudi Arabia one, and I also watched the Poland-Saudi Arabia one where Lewandowski scored his first goal for Poland ever, by the way. But yeah, basically, what happens there is that Poland advanced on goal differential because the rules of the World Cup are that the teams with the most points advance. And since both Mexico and Poland had 4 points, they had to decide it on goal differential, which is how many goals they scored versus how many scores they got scored against. And yeah, Poland had a 0 differential, Mexico had -1, so Poland moved on. What would have happened differently if Mexico moved on instead of Poland? I don't know, because I would have faced France. So, yeah, speaking about that, now for Group D, we have France and Australia, who moved on, and Tunisia and Denmark surprisingly got eliminated. Denmark was expected to do better in this World Cup. Japan and Spain got advanced to the knockout stages in Group E, and Germany and Costa Rica got knocked out. This is actually really funny to mention because Japan has been one of those upset teams in the past 2 tournaments, while Spain has been making their rounds recently, but Germany, they actually made themselves world champions 8 years ago, and it's actually sad to see them go out like this because it's actually really dumb. It is actually very dumb. A lot of people expected them to do a whole lot better, especially since they have a stacked team. They have people like Toni Kroos, Thomas Muller, and recent additions like Eden Hazard. No, that's Belgium. My bad. Recent additions like Kai Havertz. And yeah, that's just one bit of why they shouldn't have been eliminated. Either way, they would have been eliminated anyways because Spain advanced with their differential because they mollywopped Costa Rica 7-0. So yeah, there's that. That's Group E. As for Group F, Morocco and Croatia actually advanced. Morocco actually topped their group, surpassing current top 5 teams in the world, Croatia. And it's actually very surprising to see that because Morocco was not expected to do well at all. They were like the surprise team. And Belgium and Canada got knocked out. Belgium is actually probably the biggest disappointment because at the time of the tournament they were ranked number 2 in the world, and they're still ranked really high, which they shouldn't be because they don't have as well-rounded of a team as compared to the other parts of the world. So the fact that they're really up in the rankings is just a result of them winning a lot. They don't actually have a very well-rounded team. And fun fact, Canada made one of their very limited appearances in the World Cup in this tournament, and they scored their first goal like 3 minutes in against Croatia, I think it was. And yeah, basically Yeah, Alphonso Davies ended up scoring that. So, yeah, he gained Hall of Fame status on that, probably. As for Group G, Brazil, obviously, and Switzerland ended up moving on, and Cameroon and Serbia got knocked out. What's funny is that I watched the Brazil-Cameroon match, and Vincent Abubakar ended up scoring the only goal of the entire match in the 92nd minute in extra time. Just really funny. Technically, Brazil did bench a lot of their players because they were gonna win anyways. So yeah, to go to the matches. And the final group, which we discussed before moving on, Portugal topped their group and South Korea followed. This last match day was actually crazy because I was actually at school when this happened, and yeah. So I was saying, I was actually in school when this match day was happening, and there were a lot of news of these matches that were making the rounds, because I believe it was South Korea versus Ghana that was playing. No, it was South Korea v Portugal, actually. My bad. That's why I was surprised, because Portugal were playing, and I'm pretty sure they did put Ronaldo in this match, but even then they scored a lot of upset goals. Like the last match, I think it was 2-1 Portugal. Horta scored in the 5th minute for Portugal, and Kim Jong-won scored in the 27th. The one that actually upset the entire thing was Hwang Hee-chan, who scored in the 91st minute to make it 2-1 for Portugal. For South Korea. It's actually really surprising. This is what led to the entire, Uruguay getting knocked out thing, because in that one they only scored twice, 2-0, both by De Arrascaeta for Uruguay, and yeah, it's basically the teams that made it in. The teams that made it in were, I repeat, Netherlands and Senegal in Group A, England and US in Group B, Group C, Argentina and Poland, Group D, France and Australia, Group E, Japan and Spain, Group F, we just discussed this. How did I keep forgetting the groups? Yeah, Group F, Morocco, Croatia, Group G, Brazil and Switzerland, and Group H, Portugal and South Korea. Now, on to the knockout stages. I'm only going to discuss the highlights because I'm not going to discuss every single match that happened, as I did not with the group stages either. So, yeah. Some of the highlights that happened in this, part of this stage, part of the tournament, is overall in the entire knockout stages, which is round of 16 until the final, Lionel Messi made history by breaking multiple records. And he broke one record in becoming the first ever player to score in every single stage of the World Cup. He scored in the group stages against Mexico and Saudi Arabia. He also scored in the round of 16, as well as the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the final. From the goals that I remember, I'm pretty sure he scored in the semifinals against Croatia. He also scored 2 goals against France in the final. In the quarterfinals, I don't know what the goals was when he scored, but yeah, I think it was that one brace. I'm not sure. And he also scored against Australia in the round of 16. So yeah, let's break these down. There's a lot of matches to discuss here, and I'm only going to discuss some of their aspects. Netherlands-US was a beatdown, 3-1. They didn't do much in this tournament. People expected the US to pass, but I think that a lot of more people watched Iran versus US than Netherlands-US, because at the time of the match, Iran was facing a lot of backlash because at the time they had some pretty heated protests in Tehran over women's rights to wear the veil or not to wear the veil. And yeah, basically there was a lot of tension around this match, kind of like a Soviet Union and US match in any sport of the Olympics during the Cold War. That's basically the energy that this match had. And not to that extent, but And for Argentina, Australia, as I said, Argentina won 2-1. And yeah, a lot of people were expecting Australia to put up a fight, which they did. But yeah, overall, not that exciting of a match. I don't remember a lot of good things that came from it. So yeah. Now for one of the most heated matches of the round of 16, Japan versus Croatia. Japan versus Croatia was a really heated match because it was back. I watched a lot of this match and it was back and forth for the entirety of the sequence. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Maeda scored for Japan in the 43rd minute and Perisic scored for Croatia in the 55th. And they didn't score for anything else after that, not even an extra time. So they went to penalty kicks, and after extra time, Croatia won 3-1. A lot of people in my school were weeping because Japan lost, because not only were, to put it in more vulgar terms, apologies, not only was half the school dick riding Brazil and South Korea, because Brazil and K-pop. So yeah, the weebs were kind of disappointed when Japan lost, because I just told you why. And yeah, that's basically it for Japan to Croatia. Another one was Brazil and South Korea. This was a beatdown. There's no other way to describe it. Every star scored in this match. Vinicius scored, Neymar scored, Richarlison scored, Paqueta scored. This is actually where that one TikTok with the dances came. And Park Seung-ho scored for the lone goal for South Korea in the 76th minute. Overall, 4-1. Not that pleasant of a match because it was a beatdown. A lot of people were wanted South Korea to win, but they did not have a chance. Like, Brazil was ranked number 1 at the time. They did not have a chance. And yeah, that's basically it. Up next, Morocco and Spain, another one of the surprising matches of this entire tournament. Morocco started their miraculous campaign in the knockout stages with this match. It remains 0-0 for the entire match, and yeah, I watched this one too. It was really heated. Like, they just went back and forth, and they were making... Morocco, I remember, was making a lot of plays on defense. I think Bono did not concede any goals until the France game. I think they conceded 1 goal, but Morocco is actually the country in this tournament that conceded the least goals. Because I think there was only 2 matches in the entire tournament that Morocco played, and they got scored against. Or free, who knows. But going into the knockout stages, they were really solid on defense. They played a lot of cool plays in defense. And aside from that, Spain wasn't really frilling on the offense. I mean, on the defense. So yeah, a lot of mistakes from Morocco's offense and a lot of really just denials from Spain's offense. So yeah, ended 0-0, and Hakimi scored the winning penalty for Morocco and made it 3-0 to win the match on penalties. And yeah, it's actually a really hysterical inside joke that Spain sucks at penalty kicks. Like, they've played like 7 or 8 matches and have won none on penalty kicks. And now for the last match of the knockout stage, round of 16, Portugal won against Switzerland 6-1, and this match was kind of expected to go like this, but not for the reason you might expect. So basically, going into the knockout stages, there was a bit of a little heated, little tension between the Portugal national team, because in the South Korea match, Ronaldo got a little bit mad with the coach because they benched him early, or they didn't put him in the starting lineup or something, I don't know. And yeah, the coach, as punishment, did not put him into this match, and since they performed really well, winning 6-1 with Gonzalo Ramos, the other striker aside from Ronaldo, scoring the 17th minute. Actually scored twice. I mean, 3 times. He scored a hat-trick in this match. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that because the coach saw that Ronaldo's replacement scored 3 times. I'm pretty sure he was confident enough to put him on starting instead of Ronaldo in the next match. More on that in a second. Next match was actually probably the most famous, aside from the final, of course, out of the entire tournament, because it's Croatia versus Brazil. Neymar scored, like I said, I'm looking at the scoreline and penalties right now, and this match was probably the most head-to-head one I've ever seen. The match was silent in the broadcast for a lot of the tournament. People were silent. They weren't even moving. They were silent. This was one of the most intense matches in the cup, and for good reason. Since their victory in 2002, Brazil has only managed to reach the quarterfinals on like 2 or 3 separate occasions. They won once, and we all know how that went. I'm only going to say one thing: Germany. Yeah, basically, Croatia and Brazil went head-to-head, and this match was tense because at the time Croatia was really highly ranked, and they still are, but yeah, they were going on with a lot of this momentum because they had a lot of star players on their roster. They had Josip Guardiola, who is still making the rounds as a good youngster, by the way, and a lot of other players such as Rakitic, Petkovic, and a lot of others have made the rounds recently, and yeah, they're here. So yeah, it was tense for the entire match, and Brazil opened the scoring in the 106th minute, like 105 plus 1, and this is extra time, by the way. They took an entire game plus a half of the extra time to score. Neymar scored in the 105th minute, and Petkovic probably scored the goal of his career, what will probably go down as the goal of his career, in the 117th minute with 3 minutes left. And yeah, basically it went to penalties. Brazil's not that good at penalties, so yeah. So yeah, this is probably one of the most meme moments as well of the entire tournament. But when all was said and done, Croatia made all 4 of their penalty kicks, and I forgot the name of the goalkeeper, but yeah, the Croatian goalkeeper made 2 key saves, including Marquinhos' left post miss. I don't think he saved that one, but he was there. He was there for it. He was there for it, and the hole was there to be scored, but Marquinhos hit the goalpost and cost Brazil their World Cup. They got eliminated, which probably upset the most people because, Brazil is the best at football stereotypically, and a lot of people were upset because of that. I, for one, was actually glad that Brazil lost because they have their head in the clouds with that whole "we're the best" mentality, especially in the Premier League. And I don't have nothing against Brazil, the country. I love Brazil and I love the culture, but the team is a little over its head. I actually got kicked from a group chat because I celebrated Brazil's win when everyone else was weeping about it, and I didn't get added back until like 2 days later. So yeah, fuck you, Ian. But yeah, aside from that, it's all good. Next up, Brazil, Netherlands, Argentina. And this is also probably one of the most... Actually, a lot of these matches were really close called because there were a lot of people who also said it was one of the best World Cups, when memorably was not really, but they had a lot of good matches, including this one. Netherlands-Argentina was probably the closest Argentina came to losing the tournament. Yes, even closer than the final, because it went to penalties again. And yeah, Netherlands-Argentina. Before this match, there was actually a lot of heat going on because I don't know if it was Louis van Gaal, the coach of Netherlands at the time, or someone else who said it, but basically one of the coaches or representatives of the Netherlands team said that if the match goes to penalties, then Argentina will lose. That they will bring a fight to Argentina, and they did. But yeah, they pretty much ate their own shit. Because, yeah, in this match, Argentina led for most of the contest. Molina scored in the 35th, make it 1-0. And in the 73rd, Messi scored from a penalty kick he got. And yeah, a lot of people were saying Argentina was going to win because there were like 20-something minutes left and they were winning 2-0. But, you know, that wasn't the case in the World Cup for any match, it seems, because Weghorst brought it back and scored in the 83rd, and I'm pretty sure it was the last play of the match. They had a corner kick, or no, it was a free kick. He scored a free kick because the kick went through the wall, it bounced around a little bit, and then Weghorst came from, yeah, I don't know if Weghorst was the one that came or it bounced off a player, but yeah, the goal was given to Weghorst and he scored in the 111th minute. There was no extra time, by the way. I mean, 101st, sorry. I think there was extra time, but they didn't score in at all. Like, they went to penalties, and Van Dijk and Berghuis both missed their opening penalties, while Messi, Paredes, and Montiel all made their opening penalties to make it 3-1 for Argentina, because Koopmeiners actually scored his penalty. But then Enzo Fernandez missed his, and the match saver Weghorst and De Jong both made their penalties, which left Lautaro Martinez to make the winning penalty for Argentina, or else they would be in trouble because they'd have to go for another round and it could get a lot more heated. Luckily he did, and Argentina moved on. They won in penalties 4-3, and it was the closest they ever came to losing. And Morocco won, Portugal 0. This is also probably one of the most controversial matches because from the Ronaldo spectacle in the Switzerland match, the coach decided to not put him in the starting lineup at all. And this upset a lot of fans because, you know, Morocco was one of those up-and-coming teams and there was a lot of momentum for them to win. And, you know, Ronaldo could have done something about it. And, yeah, and Nasri scored in the 42nd minute to make it 1-0 for Morocco. And Ronaldo was not put up there yet. A lot of people were asking for Ronaldo because the team was not looking in great shape. It wasn't until the 63rd, I think, minute that Ronaldo got put in the match. And he actually made a couple of chances too. He had one chance where he had like a bottom right corner, but Bono prevented it. But he had a really good chance. And yeah, he did the best he could in those minutes, but the coach should have just put him from the start, because I know he wants to create a future where Ronaldo's not on the team because, you know, he is growing old and there's going to be a time where he's not going to be on the team. But at the same time, he's there. Use him. So yeah, the coach ate his own shit and they lost 1-0 to Morocco, who at the time was ranked 30-something, I'm pretty sure. Next up, England, France. France came back from beating Poland 4-1, or 3-1 I think it was, which by the way Lewandowski scored his second World Cup goal in that last play of that match, and probably his last, or not, who knows. But yeah, France won this match 2-1 because Tchouameni scored in the 17th and Giroud in the 78th. Halfway in between, Harry Kane scored in the 54th through a penalty kick, and England, as always, lost on penalties, not because they went to penalties, but they lost because they had a chance to tie it with a penalty, and yeah, they missed the penalty. England misses the penalty. Pretty sure it's not new to see that. England misses their penalties and Spain never wins in a penalty match. So yeah. Next up, the semifinals. From here on out, I want to make it clear to some North American sports fans, the losers of the semifinals don't get knocked out straight away. The losers get pitted against each other in the third place match. So there's 4 teams right now, and the 2 teams that win go to the final, but the 2 teams that lose face off and the one who wins gets third place. It's logical, so yeah, it's a feature in the World Cup and many other tournaments, including the recent, forgot the name. Anyways, moving on. So yeah. Semifinals, Argentina 3, Croatia 0. This is probably the greatest revenge match in the entire tournament, because back in 2018, in the group stages, Argentina faced Croatia and they lost against Croatia 3-0, including goals from Modric. And yeah, it's a pretty regrettable time because Argentina ended up losing to, I think it was France. Yeah, France. They ended up losing to France in the round of 16. But yeah, Argentina scored 3 goals against Croatia to make it a perfect payback, because they lost 3-0 that time, and this time they won 3-0. Messi opened the scoring in the 34th with a penalty, and Julian Alvarez, who, if he was not as old as he is, should have won young player of the match, by the way, because he was absolutely stellar for Argentina in this tournament. He was absolutely stellar. So yeah, he scored in the 39th and 69th minutes, by the way. Nice. This match was one of those played at Lusail Stadium, the one that would eventually be used for the final. And the other match of the semifinals, the heartbreak, France won against Morocco 2-0. Theo Hernandez scored in the 5th and Colomwani in the 79th. More on Colomwani later. Morocco didn't actually fuzz a lot when it came to them losing, because given how they were in form at the time, they had the potential to win. They had the potential to win against their current world champions, France, which, by the way, France also broke a record, because I'm pretty sure France is one of the greatest teams at the national level on paper and on the foot, because not only did they win in 2018 the World Cup, but they broke a curse. There's been a curse that every team that wins the World Cup in the next edition, they don't get anything. They don't advance to anything. Spain won in 2010, and they lost in the knockout stages in 2014. Germany won in 2014, and they didn't make it out of the group stages in 2018. And France won in 2018, but they made it to the final in 2022. They made it to the final. In a way, in the match that we're about to detail, they didn't break the curse, but at the same time they did, because they didn't get knocked out of the tournament in the group stages. So yeah, third place match, Croatia won a third place against Morocco, completing their upset run against another upsetter, ironically. Dadi scored for Morocco in the 9th minute, and Guardiola scored for Croatia in the 7th, and Orosic in the 42nd. It was a pretty one-sided match because Croatia was dominating a lot of what was the offense. They had one of the most electric offenses in the tournament, and that is why probably they won this match specifically, because Morocco's defense was an absolute unit. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This one was played as Khalifa International. And now, probably the most watched and the greatest match in the entire tournament, potentially the greatest final out of the tournament's history. December 18th, 2022, 6 p.m. local time, Argentina versus France. One side hoping to get a World Cup trophy in the hands of the greatest of all time, Lionel Andrés Messi Cucitini, after losing 8 years prior with the same player, with a new rejuvenized team, with better skills than the 2014 version, and just hoping to take it home for the first time in a lot of years. And France, the new fancy dandy bandwagon team, the team that is hoping to repeat as world champions and becoming the first team to do that since Brazil. I'm pretty sure it was Brazil. And yeah, they had a lot of electric players too, like Argentina. They have Kylian Mbappe, they had Benzema, they had Kante. Kante played in this one, right? Yeah. Like Argentina, they had a bunch of disappointments like Paul Pogba, and they also had some pretty good clutch players like Tchouameni and Colomani. More on them later. So yeah, the match goes on. Messi opens the scoring in the 23rd minute, by the way, 23, Emiliano Martinez, with a penalty kick, and Di Maria follows soon after in the 36th minute. I remember that goal. That was probably one of the most well-orchestrated goals in the entire tournament. Messi runs across the field, literally bodying the France midfield, and then giving it to Di Maria in a clutch pass, and then just scoring that goal. That was probably one of the most cheered goals in the entire tournament, because it made Argentina win 2-0 in the World Cup final. Something they hadn't done since probably 1986. Hold on, let me look that up. Argentina versus West Germany. (1986) What? No, this is the World Cup final. Okay. Looking for the World Cup final, not the 2014 final. They won 3-2. They had not scored more than one goal in a World Cup final since 1986. They played in 1990 in the World Cup final, and they lost against West Germany, ironically, 1-0. So yeah, basically, Argentina were up 2-0 as of the 36th minute, and the rest of the match was actually pretty one-sided, at least at the first half. Sorry. When the first half ended, I checked the stats. Argentina had done something like 400 to 500 passes, like 15 to 16, probably 18 shots, like 7 shots on goal. And I saw how one-sided the stats were, because France had no shots on goal, very minimal possession, no shots at all. Actually, had no shots. When I say shots, I mean like jabs at the square. They had no shots, only passes and a little bit of action or steals, but no shots. They had 0 shots against Argentina's like 14 or 15. But things turned around in the second half, because Kylian Mbappe made a pep talk. I saw that video, and yeah, they were actually working their way around it, and they were actually making some pretty solid plays during the second half. And then came the famous turnaround. Reminder, Argentina was up 2-0 as of now. In the 80th minute, Kylian Mbappe scored in a penalty kick and made the match 2-1, Argentina winning. The next possession, usually after a team scores a goal, they pass the ball to the other team, and yeah, they keep playing. So France scores, and then Argentina gets the ball. France takes the ball. It only took them like 4 to 5 passes. Boom. Mbappe scored. Mbappe scored a second goal. Then very next minute, I kid you not, the card reads, Mbappe, 80th minute, penalty. And then the 81st minute, Mbappe scored 2 goals in 2 minutes to tie the match. You will never see that in any other part of the World Cup or world at all, unless it's like a mollywop between England and American Samoa or something. Two goals in 2 minutes against Argentina. And yeah, it was 2-2. Come the full time, they were tied 2 apiece. So then they went to extra time. Argentina had another electric run, and they had to shuffle around. They had to move past the midfield. They made a lot of good passes, and eventually they had to juggle the ball a little bit. But Messi actually scored one of the most controversial goals in the tournament, because it was a pass. It was a tap in that was then deflected by Lloris, the goalkeeper of France at the time, and then it was deflected. So then another guy, I don't remember who it was, assisted Messi, and then he scored the goal because it went over the line a little bit. Like the rules are, if it goes over the line, it's a score. So yeah, they score, they make it 3-2 to Argentina with 12 minutes left. However, we know that Mbappe only had to get 2 minutes to score 2 goals. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure Mbappe pretty much carried the entire team in this match because they pretty much did nothing else. Pretty sure Kolo Muani and maybe Benzema were the only guys to actually do something about anything in this match. So yeah, come the 118th minute with 2 minutes left, they get a handball. Handball is when you touch the ball with the hand or wrist or the surrounding area. From a corner kick, they managed to trick the Argentina front, and Lautaro Martinez actually touched the ball with his wrist, and that's a handball. So they gave them a penalty kick. They gave France a penalty kick. This was actually controversial because I'm pretty sure it was Chouameni or Kolo Muani that had a handball in a previous corner kick, but they didn't count it for anything. So yeah. Anyways, penalty kick, 2 minutes left. Of course, it's Mbappe, so he scores. He becomes the only player since Georgie Best for England in 1966 to score 3 goals in one World Cup final. Georgie Best won the World Cup with England in 1966. And yeah, Mbappe scored a hat-trick in this final. It's actually surprising. I'm actually surprised. No, I'm not that surprised. But yeah, moving on. With 2 minutes left, it was probably one of the most intense parts of the entire tournament because it was pretty much one-sided against France. So France made a lot of the plays in this part of the match. There was one point where Argentina made themselves vulnerable, and Mbappe had an open field, no defenders at all. He rushed towards the ball. I think no, it was Mbappe. Sorry, I remember it wrong. Mbappe was there, like he was around, but Kolo Muani had the ball, and yeah, he was right there in front, had an open field. Of course, the adrenaline gets to you, so he ran across the field, and only 2 people standing remotely close to him. The rest were far behind. So it's the decisive moment of the tournament. 3-3. If he scores, it's over. France wins and Messi is done for. Kolo Muani, of course, he had 2 choices. He could either pass it to Mbappe, who would most likely score, given that the goalkeeper, Jaime Martinez, is in a position where he will probably fall down if he tries it because he's defending Kolo Muani, not Mbappe. He could pass it to Mbappe, like guaranteed score. Or he could go for the shot. So he tried a volley shot. He didn't try a volley shot, he tried a floor shot, and Emiliano had to act fast. So he deadass spread his legs, did a split, and blocked the ball with his left foot. And that was probably the greatest save of all time in a World Cup final, because if it were not for that, Argentina would have lost. And it's in the last minutes of the entire match, and yeah, everything on the line. After this, I'm pretty sure an France player got it, but then he tried to pass it, but then an Argentina player got it, and he just swatted it away. After this, it was just a minute of back and forth, and they went to penalties. Messi scored his penalty, and so did Mbappe. Dybala scored his goal as well, but Emi Martinez went Dibu mode, and he blocked Kingsley Coman's penalty. It was actually a moment of celebration because, hello, Argentina's winning in the final, in the penalties. You cannot be in a better position. So yeah, Paredes scored, and Chouameni misses his. It misses his. So yeah, it's 3-3 at this point. It's Kolo Muani's turn. He almost scored against Dibu to win it for France. So he scores. was a pretty close penalty, but he got it. But then, the national hero came along. And I'm not talking about Messi. Sure, Messi may be the poster boy for Argentina. He's done a lot for them. But in this final, the person who kicked the last ball to give Argentina the World Cup was none other than Gonzalo Montiel. Gonzalo Montiel, current player for Sevilla. A couple of months after this, I'm pretty sure, Montiel won the Europa League with Sevilla for the 7th time for the team. And yeah, after this, Gonzalo Montiel lined up. He gave a short penalty to the left, and yeah, the rest is history. Gonzalo Montiel scored against Hugo Lloris. He slowly shuffles to the right, takes off his shirt, and that's when most people realized Argentina have become world champions. That's right, Argentina won the World Cup for the first time in 36 years. And in no other fashion, it could have been a more fairy tale ending. What will probably go down as the last or second to last cup for Lionel Messi, the long awaited trophy, the one thing he was missing from his eternal cabinet of achievements. That includes domestic titles or international titles as of the last 2 years, and pretty much anything you can achieve as a player at any level. The one trophy he was truly missing for him was the World Cup. And when Gonzalo Montiel scored that goal against Hugo Lloris, he had everyone in tears. At this point, France were the villains of the story because they were the trendy team, they was the energetic team, and yeah, pretty much anyone who didn't know who Messi was supporting France because bandwagon team. But the hearts of everyone who knows the game of football, who knows the passion involved in it, and who knows the basic gist of the fact that it's called football and not soccer or calcio. Yeah, pretty much everyone else supported Argentina because the French are stereotypically bad, goofy, dumb. I have nothing against France, I love the French people, but yeah. There's that. Argentina won 4-3 on penalties and 4-2 on penalties. The reason why I said they were closer to losing against Netherlands was because they won 4-3 instead of 4-2. And yeah, that's it. That's it for this tournament. As for the World Cup final, I'm going to give you the stats in a second. Yeah, it was played at Lusail Stadium, like I said. I'm pretty sure it was somewhere around 5.5 million people in Buenos Aires when they won the World Cup that gave them the victory parade. 5.5 million, remember that. Taylor Swift's biggest crowd was 73,000. One guy kicked the ball and won one team a trophy, and they had 5.5 million people showing up. Those are big numbers. And yeah, December 18th, 2022. Remember, Argentina won 4-2 on penalties against France at Lusail Stadium in Qatar. Man of the match was given to Lionel Messi, for obvious reasons. Szymon Marciniak was the referee from Poland. 88,966 people attended. It was partly cloudy, surprisingly. And as for the honors involved in the tournament, player of the match was also given to Messi, and the Golden Boot, which is given to the one who scores the most goals, was given to Mbappe, because it was a head-to-head fight with Messi and Mbappe over who would get the trophy. But Messi ended up getting it, Mbappe ended up getting it because he scored one more goal than Messi. I mean, hello. They literally scored against each other in this tournament a lot of times, in that match specifically. And yeah, goalkeeper of the tournament went to Emi Martinez, and player of the match, young player of the tournament went to Enzo Fernandez. And that's just that. That's just how it is. So, yeah, fairy tales go off, and fireworks go off, and after that, the Fairy Tale World Cup comes to an end. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the tournament. As for the aftermath, FIFA The Best Awards came shortly after. Messi won the best award, obviously. And, fun fact, Argentina actually swept these awards. Messi won the best player. Dibu Martinez won the best goalkeeper. Lionel Scaloni won the best coach. And, yeah, pretty sure that's it. I don't know who the young player was, but I'm pretty sure it was Argentina's too. I don't know. So yeah, that's basically it. A lot of people have retired from that tournament, from the international teams after that. Luka Modric, I'm pretty sure, had talks about retiring. I don't know if that's true, but I'm pretty sure right after the tournament, Hugo Lloris, the French goalkeeper, decided he was going to retire. And yeah, there's that. So did Sergio Ramos from the international team, by the way. And that's that. So yeah, thank you for tuning in into probably one of our longest sports episodes. Pretty sure we are recording this. We're recording this, as I said earlier, a lot after the World Cup actually happened, but there's a lot of good things that are coming soon. The Leagues Cup is coming soon, and there have been rumors about where Messi's going to end up playing. I don't know if Messi's Argentina signing has been confirmed, because, Argentina signing, my bad, Inter Miami signing has been confirmed, because I'm recording this at a different date, I think it was a couple of minutes after Khaled left that I kept on recording, but aside from that, I have no clue about where Messi will end up. But wherever he does end up, let's hope it's one for the ages, because something tells me that Messi winning the World Cup, he's not going to stop here. He's going to keep on winning things, whether it be with Argentina or whether it be with whatever other team he ends up playing with at the domestic level. Let's just hope he keeps on growing that cabinet, because he's already proved to the world that he's the greatest of all time. But let's just hope he continues his career and finishes it as a happy man. So yeah, that's been that for the episode. I've been Pancakes, your host of the episode, and Khaled sends his regards. But aside from that, thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.